Good evening. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Finance Committee. Representing the Finance Committee this evening is Councilor Gould, Councilor Manning Martin, Councilor McGinn, and Councilor Turco. I'll act as chair. First item on the agenda is a schedule of compensation for hourly rated positions not subject to collective bargaining, which is being brought about by the new minimum wage rate. And I think we'll hear from His Honor the Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening again, Council. Here today to seek approval of a new schedule of compensation for hourly rated positions not subject to collective bargaining. And this is really taken into effect because of the new minimum wage law. We as cities and towns are exempt from the minimum wage law. It's up to each city and town to go forward and do what they think is appropriate. I believe it's the right thing to adhere to the minimum wage law to $11 an hour. That would cover a lot of the park and recreation positions, some library pages, but I believe that's the appropriate action to take to support our employees. And I'm here today requesting approval to adjust the schedule accordingly. I can tell you that some of the cities and towns we checked with, Salem, Beverly, and Gloucester, all are in the process of doing this very same thing. They will be requesting an increase to $11 an hour, and I think it's the right thing for the city of Peabody and our employees, and I'd be asking for approval on that.
Councilors, you've heard the Mayor. Questions? Councilor Manning Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I noticed that there are difference in levels. Some were decreased, and there were some increases. Some have 7 levels, some have 5. Did you do a reorg, or what's the reasoning behind that?
The last time this was updated, so because of the increase in the minimum wage, we felt it was appropriate to review this ordinance. The last time it was reviewed, it was 2005. So we just made adjustments. A lot of this is based on how long an employee has been with the city. They attain certain levels depending on years of service to the city, and that's what that structure indicates.
Okay, thank you. And I noticed that the police dispatchers are no longer in the ordinance. Were they taken out and put in the police budget?
Yes.
Thank you. And the library aids and pages, they remain. Why was there any discussion, or if you remove the police dispatchers, I'm wondering why the library aids and pages didn't go under the library budget, under that line of thinking? The
police dispatchers are a part of the union. They have their collective bargaining. They go through the process of collecting bargaining. The library pages do not. And
would these pay increases in number of hours have anyone enter into, if they're hourly, they wouldn't enter into a pension or anything like that, right? If they're hourly?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Are these pension, or any of these?
If they work over 20 hours, they would be accruing time towards a potential pension, yes.
Okay, so most of these are seasonal, except the library aides, and they're over 20 hours, aren't they? Probably.
Some aren't.
Okay.
Yep. But you're correct.
But
the majority are seasonal.
Majority seasonal, and any that are already working 20 hours are already working 20
Yes.
hours, so there's no change. Okay, thank you very much, Mayor.
Other questions from the council? Being none, I'll entertain a motion. Councilor McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Move to adopt and advertise the ordinance amending the classification of compensation plan for the city of Peabody as put forward in the communication from His Honor the Mayor, February 3rd, 2017. So moved.
Thank you, Councilor. And we'll just modify the motion. The motion will be to advertise.
I believe I did say that, but I will stress and advertise.
Yeah, it's advertised, not to adopt. On the motion? Roll call.
Councilors Manning Martin.
Yes.
Turco. Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, council.
I just love this sound system. The next item on the agenda is the Municipal Modernization Act to allow for the application of bond premiums. This is a hot topic, I'm sure of much interest to the council. Thank you, Director of Finance Gingrich.
Thank you. What we're asking is to adopt the language that's attached to this memo. And what it'll do is it'll allow us, when we sell bonds, to take any bond premium for that particular sale and reduce the amount of bonds that we have to sell. It would just offset it. And in the past, those bond premiums weren't allowed to do that, but the Municipal Modernization Act is enabling us to do that. But any bond that was adopted prior to that, we need this language to allow it.
Any questions on behalf of the council? Council McGinn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we're adopting this for all past bond orders, but going forward, we're going to have to do it one by one. Is that accurate?
That's correct. All the past, this will take care of everything in the past, and then any new bond authorizations will include this language.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions? Being none, I'll entertain a motion. Motion by Councilor Gould to adopt the language as presented. On the motion? Seeing no comments, roll call.
Councilors Manning Martin.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gould.
Yes.
McGinn.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Next up on the docket is the revolving fund for Tilly's Farm. Mr. Gingrich.
Yes, we're requesting the council adopt an ordinance to establish that revolving fund for Tilly's Farm and set no limit in the amount we spend from that.
Question by council. Council Turco?
No, I really didn't have a question. I do want to mention that Tilly's does open tomorrow morning. But since you asked, so you just want to open a revolving fund. What is the limit? Did you say a limit?
Say no limit
No
on
limit.
how much we spend out of it.
No limit. That's all. I understand the need for it. Thank you.
Any further questions? Council McGinn.
Thank you. This change makes sense to me, tying the expenses to the revenue source. It's worded fairly broadly in terms of allowable expenses. Who makes the determination as to what's an allowable expense?
It refers back to the statute that's being adopted, but for the most part, you can, anything that has to do with the purchase and sale of items for sale are allowed. There's an exception for payroll if we are not taking benefits out of the fund. Otherwise, it's going to go through the budget.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, would we have to stipulate at budget time that benefits could be taken out of the revolving fund, or is that
I think it's
is
a
that
little-
an allowable expense under the way as defined in the statute?
I think it's premature for this year because we don't know how much we're going to collect and how well we're going to do there. But I think in future budgets, we may be able to eliminate any benefits out of the Tilly's budget and have it come from the revolving.
What other revolving, just for the edification, other revolving funds exist today?
We would be patterning this similar to Brooksby.
So Brooksby's the analogy here?
Right.
Okay. And do we, I think to Councilor Turco's question, will we have to look at a cap on this annually, or is that, or is
Well,
it?
I'm asking for no limit so that we can determine on an annual basis at budget time, how much we would apply as an offset to the budget through estimated receipts.
So that'd be a discussion point at budget time.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Gingrich. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions by the council? I have only one. Is this will be similar to, in setting it up as a revolving fund, similar to the skating rink and the golf course? Is that the
No,
idea?
this would be
Or
like
different?
Brooksby. Skating rink and golf course are enterprises, and there's, everything stays within that fund. This is a little different.
Any further questions? Being none, I'll entertain a motion. Councilman McGinn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would move to order that the revolving fund be established for Tilly's Farm Department number 6640 under the direction of the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Forestry in accordance with the provisions set forth in Chapter 44, Section 53 and a half. All revenues and receipts generated through Tilly's Farm activities shall be credited to the Tilly's Farm revolving fund, and all allowable expenses related to the cost of operating Tilly's Farm shall be expended from the fund. So moved.
You've heard the motion by Council McGinn. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Councilors Manning Martin.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gould. Yes. McGinn.
Yes.
Gravel.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is a request from the Peabody Municipal Light Commission for a salary increase. I'll remind the audience this is a public meeting, not a public hearing. Therefore, we will not be taking testimony unless it's otherwise requested by the council. And also would recognize that we have received information from both the light commissioners as well as the ASME unit that's attending. Is anybody, I don't know if the mayor or anybody wants to speak on behalf of any councilor. Councilor Turco.
So, Mr. Chairman, from what I gather from the request is that the light commissioners would like to be entered into the pension system for the city of Peabody. I don't think it's about the $1,000 raise. I don't want to speak for anybody, but at this juncture, I look at the city's pension system, and I know a lot of this is reimbursed by the light plant, but I just don't think it's the time to add raises of $1,100 and add to the liability of the pension system, which now is at 46% funded. It's just an opinion from one man. I would like to recognize that the Local 364 ASME is here, and there were some issues. I'm not going to get into that, but I do have my own personal opinions of the way that went down, and it does reflect on my decision.
Thank you, Councilor. And again, I recognize the fact that we have received communications from the local, and appreciate the fact that this is not a negotiation session here. This is for the council just to discuss what their recommendations will be. It is the requirement that we review it and pass forward a recommendation to the state level, and that's what we should keep to. Councilor Gould?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a very difficult decision that we have to make. Do I think the light commissioners deserve a raise? I voted against their raise. Actually, it never even came to a vote back 2 years ago. But the more I think about it, I believe they do deserve a raise. There are some hardworking members that are very visible, very out there in the public. But the flip side of all of that is there's some very hardworking members of the labor force that, and I got to be honest with you, I was a union member at my prior job. I fully support union. They were given, and it is public record because it is in our package. I believe I'm able to discuss it. If you don't think I can, Mr. Chairman, you just let me know. But a 4% raise over 3 years which averages 1.33% a year, which really does not even cover the cost of living. So I think that both deserve a raise, and I would like to think in good faith that the leadership of the light plant go back, because they are in negotiations. I did talk to the president, Mr. Collins, and they are in negotiations again for a new contract. I believe the contingent contract ends in June, if I'm correct, Mr. Collins, is that right? I would like to see the light plant negotiate in good faith and treat these folks like they deserve to be treated. It's, you know, it's a tough world out there when you're raising families and children and education, and you know, we pay our, and the light plant is separate, but the salaries that the upper leadership and members of the leadership team receive pales in comparison to what these folks that are on the street every day working hard for the city of Peabody, for the citizens of Peabody. So again, to summarize, I believe the light commissioners do deserve a raise, but I'd also like to think that the message comes out of this that the leadership team negotiates in good faith and gives these people something that they truly deserve. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I appreciate your voicing that, but the purview of the council is not to influence, or we have to respect the bargaining position of both management and the union. It's a collective bargaining unit. They have an obligation to bargain in good faith by the nature of their role. So
Yeah, I'm done, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
we shouldn't continue to try to talk about the bargaining that's going on. Other councilors? Councilor Sinowitz?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm not on the committee as a voting member, but and I don't know which way the members of this committee are going to go. But I think that the commissioners deserve a raise. Whether it's the figure to put them over the pension system, that's a different story. I think that this council has given out raises, and that's been the MO for the last 3 to 4 years, and they're the only board that has not had a raise. I can't tell you whether that $1,100 is the right thing to do. Maybe it's a $500 raise. I don't know. But I'm not on the committee, but I think that we have a partnership with Electric Light. They've been good, and I'm not saying there's a quid pro quo that, you know, they do good for us, we give them a raise. There's nothing to do with that, but we do have a partnership with them, and we work with them on the turf field donation of the money. Every year they donate money to the city in lieu. They're there for us when they had to snow blow the roofs. They do the electrical wiring. So I call it a partnership. So I don't know which way the members of the committee are going to go, but they do deserve a raise. And what that raise is yet to be determined. If it's determined to go for the full $1,100, so be it. If not, then I hope that we can work something out to give them something. And I do agree, collective bargaining, those are private negotiations, and they're sacred negotiations. You can't be talking about that publicly. So, and I don't want to go even, near that. So that's my take on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sinowitz. Other councilors? Councilor Turco.
Just in regards to the negotiation, it was submitted to us by the commissioner of the light plant, the director of the light plant. So I think that opens it up for discussion, since the letter was written by the director himself. But regardless, yeah, to go what we did to these people who were my friends and my neighbors. If the light commissioners would like a 4% raise equivalent to what the union got, I'd be more than willing to do that, but I don't see how we give the light commissioners a 25% raise when I have to, live next door to Kevin Collins and his 3 kids, and I know Heather and her children, and I'm supposed to look at them and tell them I got elected to represent them, and that's what they were given. I think we can do better than that, but thank you.
That's the beauty of the council, is you can express your opinion, and I have nothing wrong with that. I appreciate what you have to say. Councilman McGinn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Like Councilor Gould and Councilor Sinowitz, I do think the commissioners deserve a raise, but, as has been voiced by Councilor Turco, I have significant concerns about triggering the benefits element of this, which is far more significant than the raise itself in the long term, particularly when you take the health insurance element into account. So that aspect of it has me greatly concerned. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilor Mitsoulas?
I'm not on this committee, and maybe I'm out of line, but this is something I've had on my mind for 35 years. And if I am, please shut me off and say, Jim. Okay.
You haven't said enough yet for me to shut you off, Jim.
Gotcha. I got elected to the council 35 years ago, so I've been here a while. And every year I see the mayor getting up there, trying to get his budget together. He's always short for some reason or other, but we know the reasons, your new schools and so on and so on. And we constantly see, I can remember Mayor Region looking in one place, selling a building, trying to come up with the funding to keep our taxes low. And Mayor Betancourt goes through the same thing. He took $2.5 million out of our reserve to add it to the to our budget to keep the taxes down, short a couple $1 million. Everybody in the city got a tax hit of $200, $150, whatever. And I'll tell you, it always bothered me. And I'm sitting here looking at the, the heading on the light plant here. Community owned, not for profit. It's ours, okay? And one of the things that always bothered me, and I think the next time we're talking about our tax dollars, I am going to ask the light plant to make up that money. It's not like you're broke. I remember almost 40 years ago, 35 years ago, you were donating to the city $400,000, I think it was. And if I remember correctly, I think it's still $400,000. And I heard a rumor that you may give another $100 or $150. That's not even the light commissioners, the plant managers pay. What's that going to do to the city? If I thought you were broke and you were struggling, I'd say, Jim, you're out of line. But you're not broke, you're not struggling. Turn some of that money over to the city of Peabody so that the taxpayers will not see a tax increase year after year after year. You could have done this, and I'm going to make it a point when our next budget comes around to bring this up again, because I'm reading this. It's community owned, which is me. I own this. It's not for profit. You got millions of dollars sitting in certain investments here and there, and you're trying to figure out how to spend this money. That was pretty obvious when we were trying to put those sun collectors on roofs and, everywhere, and nobody wanted them. Obviously, you're sitting there trying to spend this money. Well, don't spend it. Give it back to the city so that the people who grew up in the city, and I'm talking about your elderly, who are struggling from year to year on a fixed income, because that $100, $200 that we have to raise on the taxpayers of this city, I hear about it every tax increase. They come to my shop, and that's the first thing they talk about. And they say, what's wrong with you councilors? Like we did it. We have no control. We have to pay our bills like everybody else. And if I remember correctly, you're an autonomous body. This was not created for you to keep this. It was created for the purpose of keeping our tax rate low. And if I'm out of line, I'm sorry, but I think I said my piece. Thank you.
Well, since it was on your chest for 35 years, I wanted you to get it off. Since it was on your chest for 35 years, I wanted to give you the chance to get it off your chest. So I hope you feel better, and that's okay. Good. Any other councilors? What say the council? The silence is deafening. Is there it's not a public hearing, thank you. What say the councils in terms of, is any council going to entertain a motion for the salary increase as requested or an adjusted salary increase per the discussion? Any motion?
I'll jump, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to change it. Let this council vote on what was proposed. They're proposing an $1,100 raise. If the council would like to see that, then we'll vote on it. So the motion would be to approve the Light Commissioner's raise, unless I should say that in the negative because I'm against it, but motion to deny the Light.
If you're against it, you can say a motion not to approve. Which would you like?
I would file a motion to not approve the raise to the Peabody Light Commission. Thank you.
It's making it more difficult to be a double negative in this case.
So the motion is to reject?
Motion would be to reject the $1,100 raise to the...
So the motion is to deny the requested increase from the Light Commission. So on the motion to deny, a yes vote would mean that you agree to deny it. A no vote will mean that you disagree and you want to allow it. Okay? Everybody understand?
Yep.
On the motion? Roll call?
Councilors Manning Martin. Turco.
Yes.
Gould.
No.
McGinn.
Yes.
Gravel.
No.
Motion carries 3-2.
Next item on the agenda is a local option to increase the allowance to widows of disabled public employees.
Good evening, councilors. The package I put before you, what we're asking to do is approve a local option to increase the stipend we give to widows of our public employees who passed away and they retired on an accidental disability before 1996, before there was a provision to provide for a spouse. We are currently paying the same rate we've paid since 1996. And that's set at $6,000 a year. And as you were talking about the struggling elderly, I put some numbers before you. We're talking about 10 widows in the city of Peabody. The average age of them is just over 79 years old, and the average monthly salary we give them is $575 a month to live on. The retirement board voted unanimously to approve it under the provision of the Acts of 2010 to increase it to $9,000, and they're asking the city council to also approve it.
Any questions by council? Council Manning Martin.
Yes. So, and how are you, sir? Thank you for your service to the city. We appreciate it. Let's see. So there are 10. We're talking about 10.
Currently we have 10, yes.
Currently have 10. This is only affecting 10 widows in the city of Peabody. Average age was it 79 years old?
79.4 years old, yes.
There's ages 64 to 95.
That's, yes.
And this is a request from the Peabody Retirement Board Pension Administration. And you are bringing up an act by the state from 2010 to
Yes.
raise it to $9,000, correct?
Yes.
There was a subsequent act in 2012 that asked to raise it to $12,000, correct?
Yes.
Well, since we're talking about 10 of our senior citizens,
Yes.
average age of 80 years old, and we're only talking about 10 people. Now, these are the type of things that people want to see their taxes going to. Any tax increase, I don't know anybody that would say that it was going towards 10 80-year-old women who are the widows of
Essentially, police and firefighters that were
widows of
accident-
police and firefighters who were essentially had to retire early due to injuries, so that their salaries, their earning potential was cut short,
Yes.
so that the spouses, these 10 women, average age of 80, Peabody residents, are living off of that income that was cut short
Yes.
many, many, many years ago in most cases, correct?
Yes.
So this is the type of thing that I can support, and I think I don't know anybody that wouldn't support something like this. This is where people want to see their taxes going. And when we're talking about pensions, this is what pensions are for. And what I'm going to suggest is, if the state recognized that we were underfunding these women and folks like them back in 2012, to increase it to $12,000, and we haven't even acted on the increase that the state suggested in 2010, then I suggest we at least get up to speed with the suggestion of the state that recognized that we were underfunding these lovely ladies in 2012, and I'm going to ask the council to propose supporting the Act of 2012 and raise it to $12,000, not $9,000. These are the type of things that we should be doing as a community and as a state. And if we're talking about 10 women who lost their spouses, police and fire, and they were injured and their salaries were cut short, their earning capabilities, these women are still around, living in our community. And that's what we should be doing. And I'm going to make a motion to support the Act of 2012 for $12,000. So moved.
Thank you.
You've heard the motion. Any questions on the motion? Any comments by other councils? I just have one question.
Yes, sir.
And it pertains to, I was actually going through, because we want to start at some point in time, a review of the city charter. And I think people would be amazed when they look at the charter how antiquated the language is when it pertains to men and women.
Yes.
For instance, having a woman's ballot. And I'm wondering, is this, if in this age where we have the potential for, and we have more women on the force as well, would this apply to widowers as well as widows
It
in
does.
the future?
We have 15 more potential people that, police and fire that went out before 96. Again, the law didn't allow for them to protect their spouse. It was take it all or insure an annuity. And there is one woman. So there would potentially be one widower.
That's great to know. I'm
And again,
glad
that
that's
is-
the case, because I think when we redo the charter in particular, we ought to erase some of that language because it's no longer appropriate, and we ought to start to think of it as people who serve, and the benefits that they receive should be equally distributed.
And I'd also like to point out, if we actually had all 15 people on this program, we would actually have a reduction of about $200,000. Based on what that retiree is earning, that stipend drops down to $500 a month. So there would actually be a savings if all 15 people were on it. Again, they wouldn't be making much.
Any further questions by the council? Being none, then I'll entertain a roll call vote for Council Manning's motion to adjust the amount to the 2012 level, the act of
To reflect
2012.
the act of 2012,
Of
raising
2012,
the
raise
figure
it to
to $12,000.
$12,000.
Thank you. So move.
Council McGinn?
Yeah, on the motion, through you, Mr. Chairman, the increase from 6 to 9, you had estimated the additional cost to be $18,838 annually. By making this move, ballpark?
37,000, just
37,000.
quick math, but.
Okay. All right,
And
thank you,
again,
Mr.
and that's
Chairman.
from the pension fund, not from city money.
No, I understand. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
On the motion? Roll call.
Councilors Manning Martin.
Yes.
Turco.
Yes.
Gould. Yes. McGinn. Gravel.
Yes.
And I'll do a yes, too.
Motion carries 5-0.
And I think that does it for the evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.